The tea was chamomile, steeped for precisely 5 minutes, served with a dollop of cream and a sprinkle of lavender buds, just the way Ambassador Elara Thorne preferred it. She sat gracefully at the head of a polished mahogany table in a room designed to resemble something out of Earth's 18th century. Lace curtains, a crackling fireplace, oil paintings of tranquil landscapes that concealed multidimensional comms arrays. On the screen before her, hundreds of alien eyes blinked back, some green and stulped, others faceted like insect glass, and a few that were simply holograms of what might pass as aristocratic slugs. "Thank you, esteemed delegates," Elara said with the gentle lilt of a schoolteacher reading to children, "for giving me the floor this morning. I hope the lavender scones we transmitted reached you in appropriate condition." There was a pause across the Galactic Senate broadcast. A tentacle being wearing a fur-lined collar burbled something in a dialect of gurgles. A translator chip translated, "Yes. Curious texture. Unexpected sweetness. Just like us," Elara murmured with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Behind her calm demeanor, two human children, Leora, age 9, and her sister, Elara, 13, were being sold on Veltrax's Prime. They were shackled with anti-psionic cuffs, dressed in ceremonial white dresses stained by travel and fear. Their hair had been braided by auction handlers to make them look more appealing. Their file described them as high emotional expressiveness specimens, excellent vocal range, suitable for cultural display or executive pet class. They didn't know why they were there. They only knew they had been taken. Prying didn't help. Pleading earned amusement. When Elara tried to bite one of the auction guards, her punishment had come in the form of disciplinary conditioning, a term that cloaked horror in clinical tone. Elara knew every detail. She had memorized the girls' bios, knew their mother's name, knew the nursery rhyme hummed when frightened. On the Galactic Senate screen, a rotund purple ambassador blinked a few extra eyelids. "The matter of these minors was unfortunate. We believe it to be an isolated incident caused by unauthorized procurement chains." Elara stirred her tea gently. "I see. So you're saying the Empire lost control of its own auction system?" Another delegate, this one crustacean with silver mandibles, interrupted. "To be clear, the children have not been harmed in any permanent way. Their physiology appears quite resilient." The fire behind Elara flared. "You took 2 children from a border colony without diplomatic clearance, without notice, and now you sell them on a public stage as if they were ornamental birds. And you expect us to view this as an accounting error?" There was a pause. Then a jellyfish-like senator floated forward. "Ambassador Thorne, we are initiating disciplinary review processes. It is our belief that proper apologies followed by suitable reparations will suffice." Elara leaned back in her chair, eyes scanning the room's false ceiling where a live counter ticked down. 71 hours, 23 minutes, and 4 seconds. "I believe I mentioned we require their return within 72 hours. The clock, as they say, is ticking." Someone chuckled, a hissing bark from a wolfish species with diplomatic immunity. "And if not," it growled, "will you send more lavender scones?" Elara smiled again. "Oh no, we'll send something else entirely." Across the galaxy on Veltrax's Prime, the auction house was lit in garish lights. Wealthy nobles and biocollectors walked marble corridors, reviewing lots. Some gawked at alien flora, others at psionic canines, but the human girls drew the largest crowd. 2 living artifacts from the so-called Earth sphere, rare, emotional, defiant. The younger one, Leora, had cried out for her mother when displayed. The buyers loved that. They considered the tears charming. In the shadows above the bidding platform, a drifter in servant robes leaned silently against a column, watching with violet-tinted oculars. He made no move, took no notes, just observed. His heartbeat didn't rise when Elara was asked to recite a line from her Earth School poetry. It didn't flutter when Leora stumbled while being posed. But when a bear reached forward to touch Elara's face, the drifter's pupils dilated slightly. Back on Earth, Elara continued speaking. "It's funny," she said, pouring another cup of tea. "When I was a child, I used to believe in monsters. I thought they lived under the bed, in the closet, or outside my window." She looked up at the Senate. "Now I know better. Monsters wear robes. They sit in chairs like these. They laugh when children scream. A few aliens shifted uncomfortably. We are not monsters, one protested. No, Elara agreed. You're worse. Monsters act from instinct. You profit from pain. The crustacean ambassador bristled. Are you threatening galactic leadership? Not at all, Elara said. I'm promising them something they've never had before, a consequence. There was silence. Then a transmission pinged on the background wall. Elara ignored it. Too early. Let them sweat. She folded her hands. Earth is not warlike. We are, by and large, peaceful. Our history is bloody, but our hearts are soft. That's what you think, isn't it? That we're sentimental fools. That we cry too easily and forgive too quickly. A long, low chime echoed, Earth's diplomatic tone for incoming fleet movement detected. But sometimes, Elara continued, rising from her chair, the things you mock us for are the very things that make us terrifying. She walked toward the camera, her eyes piercing the lens. You've taken what we hold most dear, and you've done so publicly, proudly. Do you know what we do with those who hurt our children? The jellyfish senator blinked. This is grandstanding. Emotional manipulation. Elara's tone turned sugary sweet. Oh, darling, this is emotional. That's the whole point. You see, we don't do calculated revenge. We do passionate justice with fire and fury and songs. Your nightmares will hum. Then she smiled, a real one this time. I'll leave you to your deliberations. Do keep the time in mind. She cut the transmission. On Unvexus Prime, the drifter who had watched the auction quietly left the building. He tapped a thin comms pin behind his ear. Tag confirmed, he said. Secondary targets in place. The girls are alive. Copy, came the reply. Fleet vectors ready. 70 hours till contact. The drifter paused. They're showing the children off like trophies. Understood. T-minus 6 hours to choir insertion. Stand by. He walked into the city night, unbothered by the distant laughter and light. Stars hung over Veltraxes like indifferent gods, but Earth was awake now, and humanity didn't sleep when its young cried out. Somewhere behind the auction house, Leora whispered to Elara through the bars of their temporary cell. Do you think someone's coming? Elara squeezed her sister's hand. Yes. How do you know? Elara looked up at the stars, at the biggest one, low and blue on the horizon. Because they'll hear us, even from there. Then she sang just a single line, her voice cracking with exhaustion, this little light of mine. The guards laughed. They didn't hear the melody traveling upward, encoded on subharmonics, bouncing off infrastructure nodes and relayed into silent receivers orbiting the outer systems. But Earth did, and Earth was already responding. The morning after the children's auction, the galactic news feeds lit up with headlines ranging from amused to skeptical. Humans demand children back. Offer cookies as leverage ran alongside Species 043 threatens a war over 2 units. Historians were amused. Most aliens skimmed the footage of the Earth ambassador with the same detachment they might give a wildlife documentary. On Beltrix's Prime, no one was laughing. Security at the auction site had tripled overnight. Imperial sentinels patrolled the corridors. New biometric locks sealed every exit. The girls, Leora and Elara, were moved to an underground facility that supposedly had no entrance but one. The Empire's solution to any security threat was always more armor, more layers, more protocol. What they didn't know was that the breach had already begun. 20 humans had arrived on Boraxis 3 days earlier under the banner of the choir. The ship was registered as an art collective from a backwater mining moon. Their credentials were flawless, their smiles wide, their hands always carrying instruments. They played on street corners and plazas, drawing small crowds with eerie harmonies and whimsical notes. The locals shrugged. Humans were always doing something odd, singing in minor keys, laughing in the middle of tragedy. No one watched closely enough to realize that each song was a signal. The choir wasn't here to entertain. They were here to open the gates of hell. Viola stood on the roof of the auctioneer's pleasure dome, a violin case at her feet, and a telescopic lens mounted to her cybernetic eye. Her breath steamed the glass as she counted the movements below. Guards in red armor, 2 droids, 1 administrator. She marked each with a pulse of her fingertip. They've changed the schedule, she said quietly into her collar. My guards rotate every 11 minutes now. I want the backup team in 2 blocks down, a deep voice replied, bored and amused. Copy. Bass moving. Someone tell Flute to stop singing. He's improvising again. I'm adding color, Flute whispered through a grin, his hands dancing across a silver flute in the plaza near the entrance. The notes he played made 3 pigeons flutter off in opposite directions, each carrying a sliver of micro-drone across the city. The pigeons were mechanical, of course. Nobody used real birds anymore. Too unpredictable, too honest. Beneath the plaza, in a sewer tunnel with just enough headspace to crouch, Cello unfolded a shimmering panel and scanned the walls. Her face was lit in cold blue. The map appeared, shifting as she blinked twice. Each shift narrowed her focus. I've got a corridor under the holding wing, she said. Do we have the girl's location yet? Not yet. Working on it, Viola replied. Then she worked faster. Above, a merchant paused in front of Flute's performance, transfixed. The song was melancholy now, full of longing, minor chords that twisted like homesickness. That, too, was calculated. The choir didn't play randomly. Each melody adjusted crowd behavior, opened visual lines, tested soundproofing thresholds. The music was cover, weapon, signal, a psychological operation tuned to perfection. Inside the holding facility, Elara and Elara sat in silence on a metal slab. They had not spoken in an hour, not since the last visitor had come, an insectoid noble whose curiosity had ended only when Elara refused to flinch during a scan that had earned her a slap. Elara hadn't cried this time. She had just stared, quiet and still, then began humming under her breath. Once the guard was gone, Elara finally said, that song. You think they heard it? Elara nodded. I think they're already here. The guard outside the door frowned. The humming was getting louder. Odd. It echoed too much. He turned to check the panel and heard it, another note drifting faintly through the vents. He reached for his comm just as the lights cut out. Viola's voice came crisp over the line. We're dark. Go. Cello detonated the panel, breaching the wall with a silent pop of negative pressure. 3 units of the choir flowed in like shadows. The sound they used was not explosive. It was tonal, a sharp frequency that stunned the guards for 2.7 seconds. Just enough. The guard outside the girl's cell barely had time to draw his weapon before Flute's blade, a real one this time, hidden inside the hollow of his instrument, sliced neatly across his chest. He crumpled soundlessly. Elara and Elara didn't scream when the door slid open. Viola stepped in and crouched low. Hey, songbirds. Ready to go home? Elara blinked. Are you real? I better be, Viola said, lifting Elara into her arms. I charge hazard pay for this gig. Back on the street, Bass was blocking traffic with a rousing rendition of an old Earth spiritual. The lyrics were irrelevant. The rhythm, however, triggered 5 implanted subnodes in hidden choir agents around the sector. Each began uploading scrambled drone footage to every known news outlet. The auction, the chains, the horror, and the choir walking the girls straight out the front gate. The building didn't explode, not immediately. That wasn't the mission. What exploded was the story. Footage of the rescue spread faster than light permits. Every social node, every political thread. People didn't just see the girls being saved. They saw them being paraded, shackled, stripped of dignity before that. And the alien elite smiling as it happened. Cassandra Thorne stood at a window on Earth, watching the sunrise as the feeds ignited. Well, she said softly. Her aide, an AI named Morgan with a sarcastic streak, nodded. Galactic stocks are crashing. The Velt Traxxas delegation just requested emergency diplomacy. Accept it. Delay them. Offer to bake a cake. What kind of cake? Cassandra said, but with a surprise inside. Morgan blinked. Ah, one of those cakes in orbit around Boraxis Prime. An Earth Destroyer-class ship, the HHS Mercy forged in fire, slid into position. It didn't open fire. It didn't even power weapons. It simply arrived and began transmitting classical music, nothing violent, just Beethoven, over and over. Beautiful, impossibly human. The Empire scrambled fighters. None were fired. The ship didn't flinch. "They're waiting," the Veltrax commander muttered. "Waiting for what?" The commander looked at the sky, at the calm steel drifting just beyond range. "For us to understand what we've done." In the command bay of the Mercy, Captain Heller sipped black coffee and reviewed target grids. He didn't speak much. A former teacher, he had lost his daughter 5 years ago to an alien cleansing raid. They never found her. Now he captained Earth's most silent warship. "Orders," his exo asked. Heller looked down at the blinking console. The footage of Elara's bruises, Leora's tears. He whispered, "Hold position." Below, in the choir's extraction craft, Viola sat between the girls. They flew fast and low, hugging the atmosphere. Elara clutched her sister tightly. "You really came?" Viola smiled sideways. "We always do. People just forget." Leora looked up at her. "Why didn't they think you'd come?" "Because they think softness is weakness," Viola said. "They see lullabies and forget about the wolves behind the melody." As they exited orbit, the signal pulse went out, one sharp note across encoded channels. Earth received it within seconds. The children were safe. The second phase could begin. Cassandra stood in the war room, surrounded by brass and quiet rage. On the screen, delegates still argued, begging for understanding, for patience, for time. "Send a message," she said. "What kind?" she smiled. "Something polite." A simple signal was crafted. It read, "To whom it may concern, 2 of ours were taken. We retrieved them. This is not a declaration of war, but it is a lesson. Next time we won't sing." The message went out to every known frequency. It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. In deep space, the Empire scrambled to control the narrative. Accusations flew, sabotage, human manipulation, propaganda. But none of it mattered. One image had already been seen by trillions. Leora smiling as a human soldier wrapped her in a blanket. Not a gun, not a threat, a blanket. And the knowledge that they came for her. They didn't hesitate. They crossed stars. They risked everything. The galaxy didn't understand humans, not really, not until now. Back on Beltrax's, the auction house stood hollow and burning from within. A quiet blue flame that left structure, but erased memory. In the center of the chamber, drawn in ash, were 3 words. We heard them. In the silence that followed, the Empire began to worry. They had not yet seen Earth's war. They had only heard its whisper. And already, the stars were shivering. Var Dead Death Hack stood at the edge of the Terran reception chamber and reminded himself to smile. His facial structure didn't quite allow for it, but he approximated, curling the lower segments of his face plates back just enough to suggest goodwill, not threat. A translator node clicked softly at his throat. He adjusted his formal cuffs, straightened his diplomatic sash, and practiced his opening line again in his mind. He was here to apologize formally, elegantly, efficiently. The human children had been retrieved, yes, but the political consequences were uncontained. The Empire had spent the last week stamping out fires it didn't understand. Trade routes collapsing, colonial rebellions whispering, hundreds of allied species reconsidering contracts. The footage of the rescue of Earth's subtle invasion of Ilrax's prime had not faded. It had metastasized. The worst part, humanity hadn't declared war. They had just sent a message, and then gone quiet. Veritated silence, a wire of unread intentions. The door to the Earth reception hall opened with a soft hiss of compressed wood and artificial oil. Cassandra Thorne stood inside. She was dressed in a blue dress with white gloves, her hair pinned neatly, and a faint string of pearls at her neck. She looked like she was headed to a tea party or a funeral. Var inclined his head. "Ambassador Thorne, I come bearing the Empire's sincerest regrets and a full accounting of disciplinary actions taken. Those responsible for the auction have been relieved. Some have been detained. We would. You like a cookie?" Cassandra asked pleasantly. Var blinked. "I beg your pardon." She gestured to a tray. "Chocolate chip, fresh. The chips are made from cocoa grown on the eastern slopes of the Andes. Very high in emotional resonance. Humans use food as peace offerings. You'll find it traditional." He took one. It was warm, which disturbed him more than it should. I'm pleased to see you again, he said. Voice formal, though I wish it were under different circumstances. Cassandra walked to the window. Earth's sky was bright today, pale blue with drifting clouds, birds carving lazy paths above. Below, diplomats mingled in shaded gardens. It looked serene. How many systems do you think we could erase in 30 minutes? She asked, not looking at him. Var swallowed. I believe this is meant to be a diplomatic discussion. It is, she turned, hands clasped lightly in front of her. But you didn't come here to apologize. Not really. You came to measure, to assess. You want to know what we're planning. He hesitated. Yes. She smiled faintly. Good. I'd hate for us to pretend. A door opened behind them. For humans entered the chamber. They didn't look military, but Var recognized danger when he saw it. One of them had the eyes of someone who had built bombs. Another walked like she still carried a sniper rifle, even when pouring tea. This is my advisory team, Cassandra said. Each of them has been to war, real war, not your floaty polite kind. Earth wars, the ones that leave textbooks apologizing for being insufficiently descriptive. The tea was poured. Var declined the sugar. It felt like a test. We appreciate Earth's restraint, he said. Do you? Cassandra asked. He shifted. The return of the children without full-scale invasion speaks volumes. Yes, she said softly. It says we hoped foolishly that you might learn before bleeding. One of her advisors, an older man with a tremor in his hand and a medal of silence on his lapel, spoke up. You took our children, our young. That's not a breach of protocol. That's a primal line crossed. It was not sanctioned, Var repeated. The process, Cassandra echoed. Not the impulse. Not the belief that humans are yours to handle. Var adjusted his collar. We understand now that your species has protective instincts that defy expected logic patterns. Another advisor laughed once, dry and sharp. You think we're unpredictable because we don't calculate everything, but we do. You just don't see the variables we weigh. Var straightened. I am empowered to offer reparations. Cassandra tilted her head. Money, credits, resources, mining rights, diplomatic authority on neutral sectors. We want none of it. He paused. Then what do you want? She leaned forward just slightly. We want you to understand viscerally that hurting our children will never again be seen as cost-efficient. Var nodded slowly. You intend to make an example. Oh, we already have, Cassandra replied. You're just late to the screening. The far wall activated. A large screen flickered to life. Var turned and stared. 3 Empire worlds, not destroyed, worse. Their communications networks had been surgically erased. Their trade grids frozen by data viruses that hummed in perfect silence. Their skies were now filled with micro-drones broadcasting Earth lullabies on loop. Not deadly, just eerie. Everywhere, he blinked. You silenced them, Cassandra's voice was calm. We don't need your territory or your people. Just your memory. We want the stars to remember what happens when someone makes Earth cry. Var paced a step. This is asymmetrical psychological warfare. It's art, one advisor corrected him. It's terrorism. No, Cassandra said. It's theater. He turned. What happens if we respond militarily? Then you'll experience part 2, she replied. The part where we stop writing with lullabies and start writing with fire. He stared. You planned this. You prepared for it. She corrected him. You planned the auction. There was a long pause. Var finally sighed. You're not a peaceful species. No, she agreed. We're a kind species when we can be, when we're allowed to be. And now we're reminding the galaxy that kindness isn't free. That mercy has teeth. His translator clicked twice, confused by the idiom. Cassandra sighed. You still don't get it. Var stood again. Perhaps not, but I have heard what I needed to hear. She walked him to the door. Then do with it what you will. As he left, she added, by the way, you might want to check the Imperial Senate's northern vaults. He paused. Why? They're not yours anymore. He turned sharply. That's a declaration of war. No, she said. That's a bookmark. You don't get to rewrite history if we hold the ink. As Var's ship rose through Earth's atmosphere, he sat alone in his chamber and bit into the cookie she'd given him. It crumbled softly. Inside was something hard. He pulled it out, a tiny silver disc, no bigger than his thumbnail. He inserted it into the console. It played one sound, a single child's laugh. That was all. And it chilled him more than any fleet ever could. Captain Heller stood alone on the command deck of the Mercy forged in fire, his hands clasped behind his back, staring into the expanse of space around him. Earth's fleet held formation, silent, gleaming, predatory in its patience. They did not broadcast demands. They did not blink warnings in garish red. They simply floated, calm and cold as winter steel. Below, the Empire's outer colonies churned in confusion. Some called for retaliation. Some begged for negotiations. Most simply held their breath. Orders confirmed, came the voice of his exo, a quiet woman with a voice like brittle glass. Authorization codes cleared. We have green light. Timing. Heller asked. 3 systems marked for synchronized demonstration. Earth time noon. That's in 12 minutes. He didn't nod. He never did. Instead, he walked to the central interface and stared at the small photo taped beside it, a girl with curly hair and a crooked smile. His daughter, gone 5 years. Her name had been Lily. She loved lullabies. She'd sung to the dog, to her mother, to the stars. When the alien cleansing party came, Lily had still been singing. He looked away. Begin the requiem. Across the Earth fleet, orders echoed. Weapons charged, not with heat, but with sound. These weren't missiles. They were harmonic destabilizers, tuned frequencies that unraveled molecular cohesion, melted steel, and made quantum shields hum like broken violins. A human invention too poetic to be trusted, too elegant not to be feared. The first strike came not with fire, but with music. Veltrax's Beta's orbital platforms trembled as an old Earth lullaby swept across them. Go to sleep, little baby. The melody twisted, fragmented, grew distorted. By the time the final chorus whispered through the comms, every satellite had melted. Every signal gone. No screams. Just silence. The second system, Urim's Crown, had prepared its defense. 5 cruisers, a planetary defense grid, and a full detachment of psionic core. They'd studied human warfare, expected chaos and aggression. What they didn't expect was grace. A single human vessel entered orbit. It did not fire. Instead, it broadcast a signal, a soft child's voice reciting the story of the boy who cried wolf. Then came the wolves. Automated microfleets emerged from the planet's moons, invisible, waiting, nested like seeds in stone. They shredded the defense grid in 7 minutes. The psionic core tried to counter, but their resonance was fractured by human interference tones, harmless to the body, but unbearable to the mind. Earth left Urim's Crown intact. They just shut off the lights. Cassandra Thorne stood in a war chamber buried beneath the Andes, watching everything unfold in silence. Her advisors offered no commentary. They had done their part. Now Earth spoke in its own voice. Morgan, the AI aide, flickered to her side. Intercepted message from the Empire. It says, High Chancellor wishes to discuss surrender parameters. Cassandra sipped her tea. Tell them we're busy. Morgan hesitated. He's offering full reparations. I'm not interested in apologies, she said. I want understanding. What if they never do? She smiled faintly. Then they'll burn, kindly but thoroughly. She turned to the feed from Veltrax's Prime. The auction house now lay in ruins, unwrapped by weapons but collapsed by engineered tectonic tremors. No one died, but the building, the memory was erased. Their cultural data center, she asked. Evacuated in time, but their art, music, records gone. Cassandra nodded. Perfect. Let them learn what it feels like to have your lullabies stolen. On the far edge of the battlefield, the Empire's last hope stood, a dreadnought-class warship, Sovereign Light, bristling with every known weapon. Its captain, a grizzled veteran named Ortiz Var, stared at the Earth ships with narrowed eyes. We engage now, he said. No response from Earth Command. His officer warned, then we fire first. The weapons charged. Power surged. Then the lights dimmed, one by one. The systems went black, not from attack, but from within. The Earth virus had reached them. Lines of code, so beautiful, so simple it was mistaken for an art file. It rewrote everything in couplets. As the last system shut down, Ortiz heard the melody coming through the emergency speakers. Go to sleep, little baby. He realized it wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a message. It was morning. His ship drifted, powerless. No one on Earth ever fired a shot. Back home, in a modest Earth home near the edge of a reclaimed forest, Elara and Elara sat at a kitchen table, eating toast and honey. Their mother, pale but smiling, watched over them like she was afraid to blink. The girls laughed. Their bruises had healed. The nightmares hadn't, but they were home. A small audio unit on the counter played soft classical music. Elara looked up. Are we still at war? Their mother hesitated. No, said a voice from the doorway. It was Viola, dressed in civilian clothes. Her sniper's eyes were softer but still alert. Not war, just memory correction. Elara nodded solemnly. They won't do it again. They might, Viola said. But they'll remember what happened the last time. Elara looked up. Why do people hurt kids? Viola didn't answer. Instead, Cassandra's voice came from the audio unit, an open broadcast. Her words now public. There is no revenge here. Only clarity. You touched what we hold sacred, and we responded with the only language you left us. In space, the last Earthship began to retreat. The Empire was intact, but its pride was ash, its certainty shattered, its myths rewritten. Cassandra finished her broadcast with a quote from an old Earth writer. Beware the fury of a patient people. Then the signal ended. In a quiet observation room on Earth, Captain Heller turned off the feed and looked down at the small holoframe in his hand. Lily's face smiled back. We're done, he whispered. His exo nodded. Orders? He rose. Let the galaxy heal, but let it never forget. And across the stars where once Earth had been mocked and doubted, a new phrase began to echo, not as threat, but as reverence. Don't touch the children. The words weren't law. They were legend. And legends in this galaxy were sacred.